In this segment, we'll be taking one fully colonized jar of rye grains, breaking it up, and transferring it into 10 additional sterilized jars of rye grain. This is known as grain-to-grain transfer, and it's one of the staples of mycology. Now, it's very important to understand that when doing grain-to-grain transfers, I simply cannot overemphasize the importance of following proper sterile procedure. Now, before we get started with the grain-to-grain transfers, I want to go over the things I did off camera before this scene even started. The laminar flow hood has been running for over an hour in a tightly sealed room. I do that in order to scrub the air of mold spores and bacteria. During that hour, I took a shower and washed my hair, brushed my teeth and used mouthwash, and then I got dressed with freshly laundered scrubs. If you don't have scrubs, simply put on freshly laundered cotton clothing. You can see I'm wearing surgical gloves and Tyvek wrist sleeves to protect my work from any bacteria-laden dead skin cells that the flow hood might knock off that would land in it. I'm wearing a surgical mask, not a dust mask. A dust mask is useless for mycology. They're designed to protect you from inhaling very large particles, such as what you would get if you were out mowing your lawn or something. A surgical mask is designed to protect a patient from the surgeon's own exhaled bacteria, so that's what you want for mycology use. I'm also wearing a hairnet. All of the surfaces have been scrubbed down with alcohol, and now it's time to go to work. Now, the first step, of course, is to very carefully inspect your grain master for any sign of contamination. This is Ganoderma oregonese, one of the reishi mushrooms, and as you can see, it looks like it's kind of splotchy, but that's just the way this mycelium grows. Other types of mycelium, such as oysters or Psilocybe cubensis, will leave your jar a solid, pure white. So it's important to know what each type of mycelium that you work with looks like so that you'll notice if anything is out of the ordinary. Well, let's get started now. You'll notice I'm going to sanitize the jars and the lids very well with alcohol. The purpose for this is so that when we open the jar, the flow hood doesn't knock any contaminants that might be on the surface into our sterilized grains. Once you get your jars sanitized and in front of the flow hood, go ahead and loosen the lids because that will help you to work much faster once you begin making your grain-to-grain transfers. As you'll see repeatedly throughout this video, I use a fully inflated bicycle tire to break up my grain spawn, and you'll see here it only takes a few whacks on the tire and each kernel separates from each other kernel. It's a very effective way to do it. Of course, after breaking up my spawn jar on that nasty tire, it's necessary to sanitize my gloves once again with alcohol, and at this time we go ahead and sanitize the grain master very well with alcohol. Depending on the jars you use, you might find that there's a little valley just below the lid and a rim on the glass. You want to be sure and get in there with alcohol real well because that's right near the opening and you don't want any contaminants from the air that might be stuck to that because your flow hood could very easily blow that right into your grain master or a receiving jar. Let me freeze this frame right here for just a few seconds because I want to explain this next step. You'll notice I have 4 jars lined up side by side in front of the flow hood. That's all I have room for with this small hood. But what you want to do now is remove the lid from your Grain Master and place it upside down on the jar just to the right of it, and remove the lid from the first receiving jar and place it upside down on the jar just to the left of that one. You want to make sure both of these lids, while upside down, are well inside the sterile flow of air coming from your flow hood. Next, you simply pour and twist from the Grain Master into each receiving jar, and always return the lid to the receiving jar as quickly as possible after making the transfer. You can leave the lid off of the Grain Master until after you've completed all 10 transfers. I should probably also point out, if you were doing this in a glove box, you really wouldn't do it any differently. I use the flow hood because it's much more convenient to work in front of, and of course for filming it's much better because you don't have to look through the plastic walls of the glove box. Notice the position of my hands and fingers as I open and close the lids on these jars. No part of my fingers ever come between the flow hood and the open jar, because any contaminants that might have landed on my gloves since I sanitized them could easily be blown inside the jar. Well, that's about it. I'm sure you get the point. When you get done making the transfers, go ahead and give each jar a good shake to distribute the colonized grains in with the uncolonized ones, and always remember to label the jars right away with the date, species, and strain.